Hey guys, I'm Simon, and this is my guide on my favorite way to lube all sorts of stabilizers. So that applies to cherry, enjoy PVC, screw-in, snap-in stabilizers, any generic cherry style stabilizers. All right, here we are at my tremendously destroyed mouse mat, and we're gonna grab some of the basics. Now, you're gonna want your wires, your stabilizer housings, your stabilizer stems, as well as screws if these are screw-in stabilizers. Otherwise, you don't need the screws. Now for the actual lubing, I suggest you get an applicator. And I'll link these in the description, they're super cheap. You will want either 205 grade 0 or 204 grade 0. Both are absolutely fine in this situation. And then you want this very particular super lube, which I will also link in the description. Now, this is 21010, so 21010, and this is just great super lube. I always buy a bunch. I think you can get them in packs of 3. They're a little hard to find on Amazon, so as soon as I see them, I get them. They're very handy. And then we're gonna need a PCB to put these stabilizers in. That's it. Let's get straight into it. One thing I forgot to mention was to get a nail clipper. And the more terrible and rusted it is, the better it will be for this situation. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to grab ourselves a couple of stems. Now, what we will do is remove these little feet. And these can be simply clipped off. This is known as clipping your stabilizers. All right. Once that's done, we technically don't have to touch these anymore. Now, a lot of people will go ahead and lube the actual stems, but the issue is you have to lube them on all 4 sides. And once you do that, they're kind of hard to grab onto. So what I do instead is I lube the housings from the inside. So in the direction that you're currently seeing, what I'll do is grab a nice big dab of 205 or 204 grade 0, and then gently brush it against all 4 interior sides, trying to get as much coverage as you possibly can. See, that's good. You should be able to see the lube. Unlike lubing a switch, seeing the lube means that's been done correctly, not that it's been overlubed. We'll do the same thing for our other side. Again, a nice big dab of lube, and just get all 4 interior sides. At this point, we're actually done with our 204 and 205. A lot of people will lube the plastic to metal connections with 205, and I find that's just very wasteful, as 205 is not thick enough to actually properly fill up the space, and instead tends to kind of slide out. Now, realistically, we're not going to need the super lube until the very end. So we're going to quickly assemble this stabilizer and put it into the testing PCB. As is customary, I have put the stems in the wrong way around. All right, now we are all set to go for the last bit of the lubing procedure. Now, what I was talking about earlier was the fact that a lot of people will use 204 or 205 within the area that the wire moves around in. And it's kind of hard to see, but if you look inside here, you can see that there's quite a lot of empty space. Now what I like to do with this super lube, since it comes with a neat little nozzle, I just put it in here and I squeeze until I can see it starting to overflow just a tiny bit. Then I'll do the same thing on the other side. Very good. Now what we want to do is also get this area where the wire contacts the plastic. Now that may seem like far too much lube, and my method of lubing stabilizers relies on over-lubing just a tiny bit. The nice thing about over-lubing stabilizers is it's an open area, so the excess lube will just move out of the way and settle much lower, where it doesn't get in any it doesn't get into the way of anything. Now, traditionally, after lubing like this, before feeling it out, what I like to do is grab a switch and also grab a 2U keycap of any kind. All right, so now what we'll do is just spam it for a decent amount of time. You'll already feel that it's very smooth, but you'll feel a little bit of resistance. Through doing this, you're essentially moving the excess lube out of the way. Now, if I'm going to do a build for somebody else, what I'll do is I'll do this ahead of time, so as soon as they receive their keyboard, everything feels normal. But if it's for my own build, I know that over time, simply through pressing it, it's going to equalize out the lube. And that's it. Now, the nice thing about this is it's non-conductive, so you don't have to be afraid if it gets everywhere. It's relatively easy to remove. As a matter of fact, you can use a clean applicator and just clean around it if you want, but none of that is absolutely necessary. Now, for reference of what this would sound like on a built board, here we've got a KFE. I want you to listen very carefully to the stabilizers. They all sound absolutely fine, and they feel absolutely fine, as I've pressed them quite a bit at this point. Now, I will leave a link in the description to this particular super lube, the applicators, of course, and a link to Switch Mod, where you can get some grade 0. All right. Well, this is by no means a end-all be-all guide, but this is my personal preferred way of actually lubing stabilizers. Now, lubing entirely with any grade 0 is fine. It's just a little bit wasteful. I don't like that, and I think it needs to be reapplied slightly more often. The super lube is very, very viscous, so it handles the metal on plastic contacts very well and tends to stay in its place instead of slowly sneaking out of the bottom of the stabilizers. In terms of feeling, I think that after a little bit of break-in, they feel pretty much exactly the same as a full 205 job, and it ends up being much cheaper and much easier, especially to reapply. As to reapply, all you need to do is take the caps off of your board and then through the plate get back into and squeeze into the little holes. And you can do this once every couple of years. I've only had to reapply Super Lube once, and that was to a very, very heavily used board. So I hope you guys appreciate my lube guide. If you have any thoughts, drop a comment. If you like these types of educational videos, drop a like. Come back later, maybe find some more. See ya.